Oh, I think it's totally, biblical. I mean, you get to points during the day where you go, is this really happening?
All right. Are we good?
We're great.
Okay, yay.
I like your cactus.
Here. Yeah, thanks. His name's Paco.
You name the cactus? See, if not for this, no one would know you have a cactus you named. That's a plus.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't even know that, and I talked to her more than anyone probably.
So, what are you watching these days?
Christine, you go.
I am, as I mentioned, the first week I was guilty of watching way too much news television, and I noticed that my anxiety level was going up, and that there's really nothing I can do about it anyway.
Sure.
Then I became more disciplined and was just watching Cuomo, and now I don't even watch that.
I feel like what you just said is exactly what we were doing. Same exact thing.
So I'm relying on the newspaper a lot more, and maybe in the evening we'll watch the news. And I try to watch actually a lot of BBC news, just to get me a little different perspective. Sure. And you'll appreciate this because you're out on the Suffolk County or Long Island. The Channel 12 I find is the best news ever. They just report the news. Right. There's no opinion. I have no idea where what their political slant is, if anything. So that's what I've been watching. It was funny because you put in one of these things, whether I was watching Amazon or I don't even have Netflix. So yeah, my TVs are too old. I'm not a big TV watcher. So I probably, that's my next purchase, is to buy a television that has Netflix.
All right. So Amazon, I hear, delivers TVs.
Okay. I have stock though, luckily.
Paper towels and everything else. Deanna, what are you watching?
I still watch Cuomo. I watched John Oliver's last week tonight.
Yes.
But in regards to your question, I'm a Netflix girl now. I never used to watch Netflix, but I got hooked on the Ozarks. So at night, I make it a point. Like, I mean, we've completed the season now, but that would be the fave show right now. Have you seen it? Have you seen it, Lee?
I apparently I've seen the first few episodes, but I don't remember them.
Okay.
And it was an ongoing debate. You've seen it? No, I haven't. Yes, you have. No, I haven't. So I'm sure at some point I have, and I just, my brain turned to mashed potatoes like 3 weeks ago, and it's like,
right.
And we're definitely like Netflix people. I decided to park myself in the basement yesterday in that crazy rainstorm, and I wanted to tie doing something with health that I knew was going to take right about 3.5 hours. So I said, this is the perfect opportunity to watch The Irishman because it's 3.5 hours.
Okay.
And I love everything he does, and I didn't make 20 minutes. It was not. I think it's something I've got to watch like in pieces, but I couldn't. Yeah. It's like what Christine said. I couldn't focus.
Yeah.
I can't focus on 3 hours of something else. That's it. And it doesn't. And I'm not watching the news anymore. And for me, I'm just kind of watching the curve numbers at the end of the day, seeing where things are going. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Check Facebook.
Yeah.
And I that's all the news I really want to know is like, how's it going? And it seems to be getting better, which is great.
Or it's not getting worse. Yeah.
Not getting worse. Right. It's not getting worse, but it does seem like numbers are starting to come down. And, listen, I think that's all we can hope for at this point. You're in the city, Deanna.
Yeah, no, I'm in Tribeca right now.
What's it like?
It feels like August in the summer, but still cold. And you have, it just looks like an entirely different world when everyone is walking around with masks. And now I've seen it where, as 3 weeks ago, people had, no masks on. They were still walking their dog, running. Sure. It feels very eerie down here.
Are there a lot of people walking around? No. Yeah.
No. I mean, the first 2 weeks, it was like summer on the West Side Highway. Right. I said to Christine, I tried going on a run, and I literally was swerving in between people with strollers, just, packs of runners. It's not like that anymore.
No. Now people got it.
Yeah, people either gotten it or left. So.
And out here, I'll tell you something. It's like everybody says everybody's out here, but it's dead. Like
Yeah, you don't see anyone.
You don't see anybody. Like everybody's here. The only reason you know people are here is if you drive down the street at night and all the houses are lit up, but no one.
The only caveat to that, and everyone's remarked at least on Shelter Island, is that between like 5 and 7, 5 and 6:30, there's some people taking walks for some reason. That's the hour to do it. But so if I take a 3-mile walk, we might see 6 people.
Right.
Oh.
Right. But beyond that, it's as dead as a doornail. And even the supermarkets that don't have a lot of supplies, they're not packed with people.
Well, they don't allow people. I mean, we're only allowed to have 15 people at any one time in the supermarket.
Well, they started that early on out here, but what's happened is I've gone the last couple of times and there hasn't been nobody's had to regulate a line that doesn't exist.
Right.
So they're really, I'm in aisles by myself, or, maybe there's somebody at one end of the aisle and I'm like, all right, do I want to go that way or do I want to turn around, hit the next aisle and I'll come back around them? It's surreal.
And your daughter's with you?
She is.
And how are you handling that from a parenting perspective?
Well, she's a good kid, but it's hard. I mean, this whole decision on whether the schools are going to be, this is the year, that's it, they're done. And, she's totally bummed out about that if that ends up being the case, and all indications are it's going to happen. And I said, listen, the reality is you kind of don't realize it, but in the beginning of May, maybe middle of May, you and a couple of your friends, when everybody's back in the city, are going to be able to go to Pinkberry. They just don't want to put 1,500 kids in a building and see what happens.
Right.
So the reality is you'll do your 2 hours of remote learning and you'll read your book and and then you'll be able to take a walk with a mask, like you said, and maybe with 1 or 2 people and get out and at least get some connectivity, some connection. But it's hard. I mean, the kids are stressed out. Everybody's stressed out. It's like everybody wants normal back, but everybody is getting the sense and they're starting to get the joke. Nobody knows what normal's going to look like.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
One of my close friends just started a job last week. So imagine, I mean, she hadn't even met her boss in person. And now she's doing Zoom calls with her boss out of her apartment in Greenwich Village, which isn't very large. And he's like, hey, give me the cribs tour. So there she is with her boss, first day. And she's like, this is the living room. This is the bedroom.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And keep saying, if you feel, if you get cabin fever, you're welcome to come over to our Airbnb out in Brooklyn. And she's like, no, I'm good. Thank you for the offer. I'm like, imagine if you took her up on that offer.
Oh my God.
Car, like with the family, with your boss. So talk about a surreal experience.
I'd say the first 3 weeks practiced pure isolation. I mean, this house was an island. Nobody came in.
Yeah.
That was it. It was like, I don't really care. If somebody dropped off the mail, we wiped down the mail and the boxes and the Amazons and all of that. And we're still doing that. But on Saturday, we got in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody got together and we decided to drive to Manhasset, where we saw my, 80-something-year-old uncle. We drove up to Millwood, called my mother from the driveway and said, my FaceTime isn't working. Perhaps you want to come outside. And we surprised her and we, spent 20 minutes away from her and we had a glass of wine with her. And then we got back in the car. And then we went down to Freeport and we saw my girlfriend's son and the same thing, the distancing and all of that. And then we got home. And so it was like 5 hours of just essentially being in the car, rolling down the window, that kind of thing. When we pulled into the driveway, my stress level went from like 1,002 to like level, because my biggest concern was a flat tire. That was my biggest concern, or the car breaking down. And I'm like, what do you do? Like, you're driving along and now the car's got to get towed. Like, that was my major concern. I wasn't really concerned about anything else because we can keep distance and, we were 20 some odd feet away from everybody.
Yeah.
But my uncle barely came out of the garage. But that was the concern. It's like, now this integration has been great for this amount of time, and now you screwed it up because you decided to take a drive. So, once we got back here, I was like, all right, that's great. Now we're back.
I don't know if either of you have been in a Tesla, but Ben and I experienced something very interesting with Tesla and pushing it past the 0% electric mark, because we didn't fly to North Carolina. We were like, okay, we're gonna literally get in the car, drive, and we rented it through this program called Toro, where we didn't even need to come into contact with it to rent a car. So we wiped the car down, we're driving, and because North Carolina is so remote, they had very few charging stations, and which Ben didn't like out. So we're, driving it through Short Hills, North Carolina, and we see that we have 60 miles left of charging left.
Oh my God.
The next charging station was 50 miles away.
Oh my God.
So I'm Googling like Elon Musk statements about the Model 3 and what the charging limits are. And he said that between 5 and 15 is in the reserves, past 0%. So Ben and I are dealing with that. I'm like, God forbid we like the car literally stops, and then who's going to bring us charge?
Who's going to bring you battery?
Normal car. So we made it fine, but it was such an experience.
Did you use the autopilot?
Huh?
Did you use the autopilot?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You use the autopilot.
Yeah, I did. It's a weird feature.
And you just
Imagine if hackers begin to hack into that program, literally run people, bless you, off the road. You can text, you can be on your computer,
That's
and
amazing.
you're driving, yeah. But the whole 0% in reserve was quite scary.
Well, if you can't get on a plane, and early on, Jillian said to me, she goes, "Daddy, this could go 6 months." I go, "Jillian, this can't go 6 months because Daddy's got to get to Miami at some point in the next 6 months, or Daddy's going to hit himself over the head with a brick." So there's just no chance. But you talk about autopilot. I mean, you could get behind the wheel of a Tesla and hit the gas, and it'd be a lot easier of a drive, even though 95 is like the most thankless drive.
Right. It is.
So,
yeah.
So you're in the city, you're out east with me. What's the restaurant you miss the most?
I miss going to Bill Bouquet and which is near our house, and we know everybody and sort of see and be seen, and there's a lot of energy. So I would say it's very New Yorky to me, so I miss that.
And I have to say Lure in Soho. Lure Fish Bar.
What's the best thing you've cooked or made during this whole thing?
I couldn't even answer that. Have I made anything? I think I've made a sweet potato, and I think I told Christine about
it. It is.
I don't
beaming with pride over here. No, I would say that's one thing I've done a lot, much more of is cooking. I'm kind of over it. It was fun for the first 2 weeks, kind of. I'm kind of done with my repertoire. But we've had veal Milanese, we've had veal piccata. We had for Christian had his birthday not long ago, so we had lobster tails and seared grilled sushi grade tuna. So yeah, the eating has been just fine. But it's been good. It's been nice to cook. The cleanup I could do without. And I find lunch, I don't know about you, Lee, but like lunch is just the biggest time drain now. Like, buying a salad at lunch, eating it, and then throwing it away. That is an experience I miss right now. It's like, gotta make the salad, eat the salad, then clean up.
What do you miss? I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, I miss going to Starbucks at around 10 after 8 and getting the little egg bite that I know is probably nothing close to an egg, and, eating that, and, all those routine-esque things, that's what I miss. And I'm a really routine OCD guy. Yeah. And the reality is, it's like, well, that routine's gone. Now the question is, what's the new routine going to be? Like, cause I'm not tied to it anymore. So I wonder if I went back and I started doing the same thing, would it resonate the same way? Or, am I going to make an egg at 6 a.m. and not necessarily do that? And
are you getting up early in the morning?
No, the only reason I'm getting up is to make sure that remote learning is being logged into, and, and also just to hit the basement and hit the gym and just not have 3.5 weeks of cooking, essentially attach itself to my ass. That's it. Because beyond that, there's no other way to say it. If you're not moving around with this kind of eating, it's crazy. You can't.
I also feel like the pedometer, like counting your steps on your phone, if you have that on your phone, I feel like that's helpful. Because it's alarming. Some of the days I've looked before I've even gone on like a run. We have a gym here, but
Sure.
I've walked like 800 steps. That's pathetic. But
You mean you previous to this?
No, like before starting to work out.
Workout,
sure.
just like, walking throughout the apartment, 800 steps. I mean, I used to do like 8,000 steps at least in real estate when we were running around.
That's
our days are, it's not, I guess I'm grateful that I wasn't behind a computer every single day and that was my norm in an office setting with other coworkers. Like, we are entrepreneurs, and yeah, we check into the office, but there were a couple of days a week that I work from home. And go from appointments from there. So I think that luckily between my husband and I, like we're kind of used from working from home.
I saw a really interesting interview. I haven't seen the show, but a British actor who's on the show Succession, which I've heard a lot about, but he was saying being an actor, something that we all have in common, whether it's you, Deanna and me, and this actors that, and I always tell people this who are entering this profession, is that we're always unemployed until we get a job. And that's part of the high of this job. You're a deal junkie, or you like to get the business. It's different from other sales jobs where you're given the product to sell. We have to go, in addition to selling the product, we have to get the product, just like you have to get your client lead. And I think an actor has to get a role.
Yeah.
And so I think to that degree, it's been a little less, it's not like I feel like I'm going to lose my job.
Right.
Which, we have many friends who are in that position. I mean, I have other very legitimate concerns as well. We don't get regular paychecks.
Right.
And I don't know when the next one is. So that's its own set of stress. But in terms of sort of wrapping around my head that I'm, always unemployed, I think I've absorbed that into my DNA at this point. So maybe this is a little less stressful than for other people who are worried, wow, I could lose my job and then I don't know where the next thing is going to be around the corner.
Yeah.
Well, I always used to think, and I still do to this day, that the last client who walks in is the last client who's going to walk in.
Yeah.
And that's how I've always functioned. I've functioned that way for all the years, all 30 years, and being addicted to that chaos, not in a negative way, just that's the Kool-Aid you drink. When you run your own business, that's the Kool-Aid you drink. And for me, there's no chaos to be addicted to. So therefore, it goes back to your point. Why am I up? This morning, out of nowhere, was the earliest I've gotten up. I woke up at 7:00 in the morning and thought to myself, why am I up? So, this is crazy. And I went back, got up at 8, dogs got to get fed and all of this. But the point is, like, for what? And people have been checking in, clients, designers, projects. They want to know. They're trying to like tie up loose ends now because I think they're somewhat unrealistic. It could be a little Pollyanna-esque about what this is going to look like when the green light goes on. So somebody sent me an email and I didn't respond to the email. So 2 days later, they said, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Everything's fine." I said, "Well, why don't you call?" Because this phone, it makes calls. So the guy calls up and he goes, "Well, is everything okay? What's going on?" I said, "You really want to know what's going on?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm in the basement. Jillian just beat me in ping pong. We're going to go upstairs and make lunch. And I'm hanging out. I'm not doing anything. And I'm not trying to make it look like I'm doing anything." And that at least gives me some level of peace. Because, how do you manufacture a day or manufacture business when there's no business right now?
But for your clients, how many jobs, Lee, did you have that you had to stop?
5 projects, 2 townhouses, 3 projects. And one of them is a summer only job.
Right. Another one.
Yeah. Right. And that's going to that is supposed to, they shut that building down on March 15th. and made a phone call to me and said, we're going to close the building for 2 months. And I was like, okay, that makes some level of sense. And they said the people who live in this building have no intention of having anybody come into this building they don't know.
Yep.
And this was early on. And I said, well, that makes complete sense. And the people in the building, they have the financial wherewithal to pretty much make the rules as they go along. And I said, well, if it's going to be closed for 2 months, we'll talk. I don't think there's a chance in this life or any other that they're going to reopen in a month.
Yeah.
And they're going to, in a month, say, okay, come on back in, and we don't know where you're from, but, go, hang your air conditioning ductwork. So that, a couple of other jobs actually kept going. And I would say to the building, what are you doing? Like, they have a board meeting. They say, well, we decided we're going to keep the building open, but everybody has to wear gloves and masks at all times. Isn't that the key? Isn't that the critical thing? It's like, if you have to wear gloves and masks at all times, first of all, where are we getting these gloves and masks? They don't exist. The next day, the board met again that night and said, okay, we're shut down.
Yeah.
What are you trying to prove? The townhouses stayed open until Cuomo said, that's it. And also because you got to a point where I got to the ethical issue of going, I can't ask people to go to work. Like, this is crazy. Like, even if you have one person on a floor, how do you ask people to go to work if it's not an essential element? And at one point I said, that's it. You got to shut this place down.
Then seeing the kind of the opposite with Urban Umbrella and who installs the product, they're begging him to stay. Like they were the ones that he got so many calls when there was that question of, are we essential? Are we non-essential? And they were like, please, we need to continue to work for our families. So.
But you are also outdoors.
Also outdoors, but they're definitely, not necessarily the 6 feet, 5 feet. They have masks. Ben bought them masks and gloves, but still, like, they're coming into contact with people pretty close to each other.
But the fact that you have the outdoor element, though, I think helps a lot. I mean, if you've ever gotten into a service elevator in a parking building with 9 other people.
I know. I've thought about the elevator situation so many different times.
Sure.
This is what we do.
Our building in New York, I haven't been in there. They only allow one grouping at a time. So if I'm going with my husband and my daughter, that's it.
Yeah.
One at a time. Right. So
one apartment at a time.
And I'm sure all the elevators in all the pre-wars that could be turned on automatic are all on automatic, and there's no elevator operators in them either. So, it's, I mean, this, and then the question becomes, so when's that going to change? That's not going to change tomorrow, and it's not going to change in May. So it's just going to be a question of, like, what's that going to look like? What's it going to look like for showings?
Yeah, no, is the service elevators now? Maybe. I mean,
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, showings.
It's funny. I was talking to Deanna at the beginning of this, and we were saying, the real stress of this all is the uncertainty of it. And I was making an analogy. It's kind of like, not that I've been in a long time, but if you're in a gym class and you're being asked to do push-ups or some kind of, tough exercise, and the instructor doesn't let you know how many you need to do,
sure.
So if you have 50 to do, or however many, 100, you're like, okay, I can wrap my head around. I've got 80 left. But now this is like, when is this going to end? And not knowing is like, you're doing push-ups, not knowing, like, you don't know how to pace yourself. You don't know how to wrap your head around it. You don't know how to budget for it. It's just like, you don't know. And I think that's the real stressor.
Yeah.
At least for me, it is.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, is my daughter going to college in the fall?
That's God. Right. Think about that. Well, one of my questions.
Again, it's first world problems, but think about your senior year in high school, no senior spring, no prom, no graduation, no any graduation parties, no spring vacation. And it was funny because she's been out here, she switched to public school. And then about a week ago, Cuomo got rid of spring break. So she's like, now my spring break's been taken.
This is spring break. This is it.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Jillian's like, she said that, like, the other night, she goes, we were supposed to be skiing in Aspen. I go, yes, I did.
Yeah.
I go, this is, this is what it is. But you know what? Come May and June, with any hope, so there won't be a prom of 300 people. Their 10 closest friends are going to end up going someplace and doing something and figuring something out. I mean, there'll be accommodations. There'll be, there has to be solutions.
When will do you think you'll feel comfortable going to a restaurant?
That's a great question. We went to Sag Harbor the other day just to drive, just to see water. And so we're on the way back, and we stop in Southampton, and we pulled into Citarella. I put on the mask, I put on the gloves, and I walk into Citarella. I ran into 2 clients in Citarella who actually could tell it was me with the mask on. So I'm like, all right, that's impressive. And I walk in, and I got cityfied. This is what it means to me. So I went in, and everything that was prepared, I bought it. I saw this, I saw that, I'm putting it on, and $260 later, which was 2 bags, which at Stop and Shop represents 5 bags.
Right.
And we can talk about that till we're blue in the face. And now I get in the car, and Kai says, "What'd you buy?" And I said, "Oh, I got meatballs, and I got whitefish salad, and I got this." And she looked at me, and she didn't even hesitate. She goes, "So you're okay eating prepared foods?" And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So anything that was prepared, I recooked it. So meatballs, I put them back in. I got them like boiled. I probably destroyed them. Carrots, I put them back in the pan. Everything. But anything that was in a container, no. And so the question is, at what point are you comfortable breaking that isolation? And I don't know the answer to that.
And it's also like, we were speaking to one of our friends that lives on Nantucket, and they heard that when they do open all the restaurants on Nantucket, they're only going to be operating at 50% capacity.
Yeah, they have to.
Yeah, so if they're going to be spreading out these tables and allowing only 50% capacity, and they don't have that takeout option, how are they going to sustain in general?
And how's that going to work? Like somebody was talking about the airlines this morning on CNBC, and they said, well, when are people going to be comfortable in the middle seat? And the reality is, it's like, when are you going to be comfortable in the air in the plane? Forget the middle seat. I mean,
the air, if you've seen those shows with all the mold,
God,
But like, even like you get the menu, you're gonna have to wipe the menu down. I mean, it's.
Listen, all of this is going to be tied to a vaccine, because the answer, I think, when am I going to be comfortable going to a restaurant, is when there's a vaccine.
Well,
that's just the reality of it.
Right before we had to stop what we were doing, the last showing we were doing at one of our Carnegie Hill listings, and it was the Friday that Trump kind of announced that it was a real thing.
Sure.
And it was like the first week of March. And the buyer was like, the broker was saying, she really wants to come. She really wants to come see it with her husband. I opened the door. I didn't know what to expect. We weren't that far along to even know like if we were supposed to wear masks. I had no gloves on. It was in a state. She comes in with, like those boots that are like the fishermen.
Sure.
Like high rain boot, but almost past the knee kind of thing.
Sure.
Long black gloves, a low slung hat, face mask. I'm like, and that was the first time. I mean, that was a shock to even open that door.
And they got you.
And she was opening each closet, like going through. She barely said a word. I'm like, if this is the new norm, I need to like refocus my brain. That might really very well be the new norm.
Well, we'll all be wearing masks for a long time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And get Renovated Home masks. We'll get our logo.
You'll get a Compass mask.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what it's going to be. And instead of T-shirts, it's going to be masks.
Yeah.
Until there's a vaccine.
What are your thoughts, just out of just from a I mean, you're in the business. Do you think there's going to be like 9/11 and exodus to the burbs following this for families who've been cooped up, or are some people just going to say to themselves, we can't live in this small apartment, but I don't want to commute, I'm going to trade up? Or what do you?
Well, I mean, for me, I've always said that my entire business revolves around the schools. So if the private schools don't exist on the Upper East Side, I'm doing something, either I'm doing this, but I'm doing it someplace else, because without the private schools, that's it. That's what drives, we've had this conversation so many times. Nobody's moving to the Upper East Side, you know, for the plethora of incredible restaurants. That's just not happening. We wish they were, but that's not it. They're going downtown to where Deanna is. So, you know, are people going to leave and start a commute? They might. As crazy as that sounds, 9/11, I remember 9/11. I remember going in. I remember it happening. I left. My mom and I were working together. The next day, I called her up and I said, we should start looking for space in Mount Kisco. Because at the time, I had a house in Croton. She was in Millwood. And I said, we should look for space in Mount Kisco. And sure enough, you know, 6-7 months later, started coming back, and then it came back, and then it roared.
I'm the statistic too. We moved to Larchmont. My daughter was born a month after 9/11, and we moved to Larchmont a few months thereafter, and then came back.
That's it.
Within a year.
Where did you go? Are you there?
Larchmont.
Yep. Wait a second. You're back. But this is different. This is different. This is, you know, you had some sense that people had some control over the situation. This is different. And
well, this reminds me of two things. One, my two comments on this is secure. You know, I think you asked, like, what's a lesson learned from all this? Whether it's investing with Madoff or 9/11 or this, security, however much you want to strive for it, is an illusion.
Sure.
Right. And
Control.
And control. We don't have any.
No.
And I think there's going to be some people, like for myself, I'm curious about your experience. While having a house in this space and a garden, I am so grateful and thankful to be here at this very moment. Long term, I'm kind of like, wow, I feel pretty isolated.
Sure.
Even if I could see friends regularly.
Right.
So I wonder you know, there's a lot of people doing the same thing, going to second homes, staying with family members in homes. And I'm wondering if that experience is resonating with them as a good thing. This is a good thing, or, you know what, I can't wait. Eventually New York will get back to normal and I crave that lifestyle. So it'll be interesting.
Well, and then the question is, what does that lifestyle look like?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I mean, right when this started happening, I bought an electric bike, a foldable electric bike, because the week leading up to it, I wasn't getting in Ubers. I wasn't getting in cabs. And if I was a basset hound. I was rolling down the window and sticking my face out of the cab the whole time. And I looked like an idiot. But so now the bike gets delivered. I deliver the bike here. It's great. I ordered an extra battery. I'm going to go 36 miles in this thing. But the question does become, like, what's it going to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, what is that lifestyle? You live in the city to pay a ridiculous amount of money to have that lifestyle. With a vaccine, that lifestyle exists. Without a vaccine, I don't know what's that lifestyle like. And, you know, we've been at this house now for 3.5 weeks. First of all, I've never been so grateful that it exists.
I know, me too.
But it gets old. It gets old.
Yeah.
You know, the freedom of option doesn't exist, and it gets a little exhausting, to say the least. So I miss that lifestyle. I knew I was a city guy. I just, you know, I like the trees, and I like the lawn, and I like the backyard, and I like the fact that when we walk down the street or bike down the street's 25 feet wide. So, you know, and there's no one on it. And if someone is walking, you can wave to them and go, hey, how's it going? And they're not breathing on you. But I also like the fact that when I walked into Starbucks, 3 baristas would say good morning to me, and they knew my thing, and they knew to you know, they knew all of that. So I don't know. I
also wonder, I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to read our newsletter. We talked about 2 things that we thought might happen in New York. One, obviously, there's going to be enormous, I think, bargains out there. Even, you know, the market was already pretty deflated, but I think, you know, I always tell Deanna, my parents' generation who bought in the 70s did extraordinarily well. And I think for people in their, first time home buyers trying to buy in New York are going to get some incredible deals. But I'm also wondering, I think Central Park, the Upper East Side and Upper West Side may become more in demand just because of the park. I think
Sure.
people who are in the city for this period of time, who don't have an outlet, and I'm not talking about Madison Square, that's not what I'm saying, or Washington Square Park. That's not doing it for you.
Real room.
Yeah.
You can take a 6-mile walk, run, bike ride in Central Park, so it'll be curious to see if people go, I want to live there. And then to the extent that the other thing we've talked about too, and so many people, especially 2-income families, or even if just the one spouse is working with a bunch of kids running around, is that space is, I think, going to become increasingly in demand.
Sure.
And maybe at the sacrifice of buildings with pet spas and climbing walls and, all these, the entertainment space that you can have. And that may help. We'll see if co-op boards become more reasonable. That may help co-ops or be a boost to them because they generally offer more space for less money. So,
Well, I also think that new construction is going to see
what?
I think new construction is going to see a tick because for my business, you're going to ask people, again, this is all, a vaccine doesn't exist. But if a vaccine exists, it's a whole different ballgame again. But on the potential of you're asking someone to buy something that needs X amount of work that's going to take Y amount of time, and they're going to play ball. They're going to want to get into that pool for the better part of a year between designs and plans, and that kind of stuff. And that's a pretty heavy commitment to make when everybody's, and you said it perfectly, when nobody's got control. There's no control. This peeled all the layers and all the facades back, and now somebody's going to say, yeah, we're going to do this. I've got three projects that are obliterated right now. They're in demo, they're in rough carpentry phase and all of that. So right now they're worth $86. When they're done, you're probably talking about $20 million. So you're going from $86 worth of value to $20 million when they're done collectively, but you got to get there.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get to, you got to put it back together again. And that's where it becomes asking people to do that. But having said that, I still get an email or two a week. I'm thinking of buying this and I'm thinking of buying that. And when things start, so there is some level of optimism that it's going to go back. We might be more worried than the people buying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think life happens. Like you're still having a third child or the first child, or, God forbid, there'll be estates as well. Life goes on and demand doesn't die. I mean, either someone's going to leave or they're the city totally, or they're going to decide we need to upgrade.
Correct.
And I'm also curious, do you think
people that have left the city that are in these homes I think it's also on the flip side, a wake-up call. Like, I can't live that domesticated life outside of the city. I mean, I have a friend that's literally on a $300 million compound right now in East Hampton. And I did a call with her 2 days ago, and she was like, "Oh, I can't. I need to leave. I need to get back to the city."
Right, and you go, "I'm sorry, what?" And
yeah, like
that's
you just
the truth.
yeah, exactly.
So the other thing, I don't know about you, Lee, but in talking to friends, like, she's maybe a partner of a law firm or a big banker. He's a big banker. They've got no help anymore. They have 3 kids. They need to homeschool the kids because you can't put like an 8-year-old in front of a computer and go, "You're good," right? So I think there's going to be, unfortunately, a lot of divorce out of this. And it's like you get to see, speaking of habits, your spouse's like work habits, or there's a lot of togetherness. And I also wonder, like, in terms of even your business, I mean, and we were surmising too, like, I don't know if open concept is going to be such a big thing anymore.
I didn't think of that. Just having rooms that you can retreat
like
to.
Walls are sexy now.
Right. Listen,
And a
it's,
townhouse, we did our whole newsletter on that. I'm like, I think townhouses, you can do the renovation. You're not stuck with the rules. It's your banister. It's your elevator. It's your outdoor space.
you control who goes in and out.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes
You
down
can
to.
do a live work situation. Oh, mom needs to live with us. Oh, here's a little, or we need some supplementary income. We can make a little apartment. I just think they offer some flexibility, and some of the prices are just, obviously they're Manhattan prices, but they're prices not seen in years and years and years.
No, and they're not going up. So the
Nope.
reality is, if you can buy them and do something with them and just hang on as this unfolds and turns into something. I mean, remember, 2009/11, everything looked a certain way, and it looked a certain way for a period of time. But if you go to 2005, 2006, those kind of times, I mean, we had a waiting list of clients that we were going to take.
Mm-hmm.
We just couldn't handle the work.
Yeah.
And if you said in 2005, could you ever imagine that being the case 4 years earlier? Of course you couldn't imagine that 4 years earlier. That's just the reality of it. So, I mean, it's going to evolve, but everybody's got to have some patience. And, this is not a city or a country that does real well with patience. So everybody's going to have to chill out and, let it.
That to me is the comfort level. To the extent I have watched some of those news shows, I feel like, at least from an international perspective, I think the United States is going to come out of this faster probably and better than many of our, European counterparts, et cetera. I do worry about the neighborhood factor. If these restaurants go away and stores, high-end retail on Madison right now. And I wonder, Lee, you'll remember this. There was a point in 2008, 9, 10 even, where it was considered really poor form for you to walk out of a store with a high-end bag.
You do not, I said to somebody the other day, you do not want to be the guy driving a Bentley down Park Avenue these days.
Yeah.
For a while, because
yeah.
somebody will pull you over and rip you out of that car. I mean, it's that, spending money on things is going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. Walking out with 5 Hermes bags, not so much.
Yeah.
That's not going to be the
lavish entertaining the same way, all of that.
But then it gets down to the question of, and again, we're separating a certain level of clientele and people, but for most of us, what do you need?
Yeah.
Do you really need to lavishly entertain? That's the thing.
Or for me, clothing, right? Like, what do we really need?
What do you need?
You need nothing, Deanna.
Overconsumption was at an all-time high.
Totally.
The way that like Net-a-Porter functions, where they deliver, $5,000 worth of merchandise to your door by 12 p.m. if you get the order in by 9 a.m. People were overspending, and that's their prerogative. But I think this has been a real check on like what we do need and what we don't need.
Well, the other thing, even I would say the thing that's hit me the hardest of all of this, and I know it's Deanna and I have talked about this, so I know it's affected her too, is I get when an undocumented worker or a restaurant worker can't make it from month to month, but I have been blown away how many quote unquote like wealthy people or people that you would assume have 6 months to a year's worth of savings acting like they're not going to make it.
Maybe because they're not going to.
No, maybe they're not. And then we sold this apartment at the very end of last year, 2090 64th Street, to the guy who runs Quality Meats. And I keep thinking of him because that's a chain of restaurants.
Great restaurant.
All those payrolls and stuff that however many days this is, we're on day 39, 40, right, somewhere around there. And people are like, my entire empire is over. And you're like, because of 40 days? Like, that's hard for me. I get it when you start getting into the numbers and everything, but like, wow, really? 40 to 80 days, 2 months is going to just upend your entire life.
Sure.
That's shocking, don't you find?
There was a study where the average restaurant can sustain 16 days without business. 16.
16 is a lot. I would have thought it would be less. You have a tremendous amount of
I
restaurants.
was living in a bubble then. Just to see how, because like we grew up, we had Friendlies growing up, so I knew that my parents had some reserves, but that must have been their reserves,
Right.
and not the average.
Well, the reality is with most of the restaurants, they are behind on rent before this happened. So now, what does that look like? And you know, the government program and the payroll protection program and all of that, that's going to help, but only for what, 8 weeks, 10 weeks? Maybe?
That's where I think we have to also just look at it like we should be to some extent grateful, because this could be Ebola, right? We could have people losing their jobs left and right where their health insurance is attached to their job. Now they have no health insurance and people are bleeding from every crevice of their body. Like we could be at that point. Luckily, thank God, thankfully we're not. But you know, to have this be something that's a little bit more severe than the flu, I take it.
Right. Right.
I'm hopeful that they just tell older people and people with sort of compromised immune systems that they need to stay at home, and that the rest of us need to get going. So it's because it's not just your health, it's like your parents' 401k or, you know, their retirement savings also. So
no doubt. My mother is in a little cottage up in Millwood and she's not moving. She lost her power yesterday and that stressed her out a little bit. And when the power came back at the end of the day, she was like, all right, all good. But like, she's not going back anytime soon.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, people in the building have it, workers in the building have it, and she's not going to roll the dice. That's it. And if she tried to roll the dice, I would like lose my mind on her. And as anybody in that situation would, you can't, it's not, the light switch isn't going to go on. It's going to be some gradual element where certain people can do certain things, but you're right. We're going to be wearing masks for the rest of the year. It's not going to be like for another month and someone's going to say, okay, everybody take their masks off, you know, say Happy New Year. It's not going to happen like that. And that's okay. Just some semblance of, you know, some routine, some normal would be a big, big, big step in the right direction. But you said, when do you feel comfortable going to a restaurant?
Or a gym.
Or a gym, right?
We're not screwed.
Or when are you going to feel comfortable getting on a plane? And then
I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask.
And then when are you going to feel comfortable going on a plane, to make it even worse, to go visit Europe?
I don't know. I also look at like how intelligent people are, how unintelligent they are. I feel like a lot of people will be cooped up, like, let's just go. You'll have all these millennials flocking places.
Really good deals, right?
I mean, you can fly to California and back for $100 right now. So
round trip.
Yeah, round trip.
Right. I have someone who works for me and they went to Miami right around this started to ramp up. And I'll tell you, when they came back, I haven't seen them since. If they were in the office, I wasn't in the office. If they were in the office, they were by themselves. I was like, nobody's going in. I'm not screwing around. My bookkeeper, who is in her 60s and I love her to pieces, I was like, you're not allowed back. Like, she's got a scanner. She's got her laptop. She can do her job from wherever she is. I go, I don't want to take a chance. So restaurants would be one thing. When are you feeling comfortable? And you go all the way back to like rudimentary, like square one. When do you feel comfortable walking into a pizzeria and saying, I'll have a slice?
Yeah.
Because when that happens, then the next step will happen and the next step will happen. And right now, when do you feel comfortable walking into Tal Bagels and saying, give me a bagel? It's crazy. And I don't know how to make bagels. So I know how to make pizza, but I don't know how to make bagels. So it's gonna take some time. Everybody's gotta, you know, gear up. But the market's up 500 today.
I know, it's not good.
Crazy. It's great. It's terrific. But, you know, I want to know who bought an iPhone in the last 35, 40 days.
Yeah, I need to.
Thrown at someone, right?
It's crazy. Well, somebody needs one. One of you, the back of the case. I know what we're getting for Christmas. Exactly. So when you're back, let's close on this question. When you're back, what's the, oh, well, actually, let me ask you one question, which everybody's had a lot of fun with. $1,000. You take the $1,000, you get a pedicure.
Pedicure and manicure.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I would take the $1,000, but I would take, if you told me haircut and color, I would take.
You would take that.
Yeah.
You would
The
take that.
pedicure is ancillary to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that then, I won't do the reading thing unless, Deanna, you're the only one of the three of us who's doing a lot of reading.
I'm reading Devil in the White City. It's about the World's Fair in 1793, about an architect and a serial killer. It's actually,
Wow.
my mom read it and recommended it. So
That's great.
yeah, no, that's one thing I've been able to do more of is read, and also,
Good for you.
yeah, like I got caught up on taxes, stuff that I had pushed to the wayside. Went through receipts. I mean, God forbid.
I still have a lot of administration, like personal admin I need to deal with. So.
Well, so now you're back and there's some semblance of a green light. What's the first thing you do? What's the thing that you miss the most? The little thing.
I mean, I miss our showings and day to day, you know, the human contact of it all, of what we do. Zoom calls are great and all, but being next to someone and talking and like just the normal, I mean, Ben and I every morning wake up and go get coffee together, and like that starts our morning. And we've not been able to even, I mean, we go on a walk, but it's like around the block, and it's,
right,
you know, with gloves and stuff on. So.
And now you're making coffee.
Yeah.
So.
And like hand sanitizer too.
You're making hand sanitizer?
Well, that one thing where we try to deploy, we were originally going to make it. And then we had all these, you know, for Urban Umbrella, we had all these stations that Ben had bought. So we were like, should we make it or should we just try and find it in other ways? So we had randomly, Ben bought a massive amount of big jugs of Purell from Costco right before all of this happened. So we were filling up hand sanitizer stations because it's kind of hard, the whole process to make it. And then you're like, you know, if you put it in the thing, the station, people come and use it and it's too soggy and it gets over people's clothing. Like, are you going to get calls? We didn't want to deal with that. So yeah, that was like a Thursday night date night. So, you know, you have to get creative.
Not so bad.
Yeah.
Christine?
For me, I mean, I was thinking one of the questions you had was like, what restaurant would you go back to? And for me, it's not like it's on my regular circuit, but like a La Grenouille or some old New York restaurant that I'm really worried about, you know, that if those disappear, that's the end of an era, you know? Yeah. So there's a couple, you know, and that can be anything from like a J.G. Mellon's to a high-end French restaurant. But there are certain things that make the city of New York. And so I'll be really sad if those don't make it.
Well,
where's the first place that people want to travel to? Like, are you in Miami? You're thinking of it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just for the mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eat.
Yeah.
My friend, my closest friend lives in Miami. She's been paddle boarding on the water. Like, we're like trying to get sunlight to come through the window.
Well, the restaurants are doing takeout. The marinas are closed. So if you have a home and you have a boat at the back of your house, you're pretty much, there's no change. Beaches are closed.
Beaches are closed.
Right. And, you know, but people are, you know, if you've got a kayak and a paddle, you're off to the races. It's 83 degrees there today.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad place to be quarantined.
But one thing you said, Lee, which is something that a friend of mine said too, which is, who's a, you know, do you know Jennifer Adams? She's a mortgage broker at Guard Hill. Anyway.
I know the name, yeah.
When I'm slow, she's like, enjoy it. Enjoy it that you're slow. You know, especially it's like, oh, you've got a daughter applying to colleges. Like, that's so great that you're slow because you won't always be slow. And I think that's my challenge here is, you know, before this all happened, I have a daughter going, I hope, to college in the fall. And I was really, we always, especially this being an election year, I always try to work as hard as possible and have the first half of the year be good, because you never know
Sure.
what the second half's going to bring, especially in an election year. So I had really been hoping to take a lot of the summer off, actually, and be out here and use the pool and all the things that I always feel badly. Like, for example, same with you. I'm like, oh, I have this house, I don't use it enough, etc. And so my challenge is, because I think I will be spending a fair amount of time out here, is to, somehow get in the headspace where just to like, enjoy the journey.
Yeah. Just take your hands off the wheel, because this car is going to go where this car is going to go.
Yeah. I mean, we've done everything I think we can. I mean, this call being among them. We have newsletters that we're sending out monthly. We're reaching out to people, hopefully not annoyingly, with, a frequency that's annoying, just making sure that they know we're out there. This Thursday, we're hosting, which you're welcome to join. I think I sent you an invitation. We're often considered trusted advisors to our clients, whether they need a contractor like you, or a design firm rather, or they want a private wealth firm, or they want a church, or they want a school recommendation or a tutor. So we have something on the college process, because obviously for people with high school kids, particularly juniors, this is a really tough time. Schools have gone on pass fail for the spring term. Athletes who were counting on a great lacrosse or tennis season or crew season have been robbed of that experience. And so, giving some guidance from some experts on that. So we're doing that. So we're just trying to stay sort of top of mind. And then when this eventually ends and we come back, hopefully people will think of us. That's all we can hope for.
That's it. And listen, design firm Contractor, I also discovered the ability of making a hell of a good brisket in the last couple of weeks. 10 hours came out
great.
Short ribs came out great. So I'm refining those skills. You never know. Never know when you're going to need them. It's great to see your faces. Stay healthy. Stay well.
Lee. Take care.
I hope to see you in person much sooner than later.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Stay soon.